States Exhibit number 8, ask you to take a look at that exhibit as a composite exhibit of 1 and 2. Now, naturally, as Mr. Reeves is old, if he's sitting on a hard chair, there's a curvature to his back, correct? You see it on photo number, looks like number 1.
His back is not straight.
Okay, and so how were you asked to perform the measurement with reference to the posture that you see there in that photo?
Detective Smith held the tape measures up and I photographed him.
So Detective Smith was the one that kind of orchestrated that as
Yes.
to how Mr. Reeves was going to be seated in an effort for you to measure him?
Yes.
Okay. And there was a forensic tool that you had there with you that day. That's depicted in photo number 2, correct?
There is an L-scale ruler there.
From a forensic company. Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't get your answer.
An L-scale ruler.
Okay.
From a forensic company that you received from your supplier, right?
I would assume so.
Did you, at that point in time, use that forensic ruler in order to determine whether your Home Depot or Lowe's ruler was accurate or to what degree it was off?
No, I did not.
Okay. You did know that this was a accusation of a homicide case, did you not?
Yes.
I pass the witness.
Ready to write?
No.
May this witness be released?
She may go back to her normal business, but she's still under surveillance.
Okay. If you need to get called back, I'm certain caller will give you plenty of advance notice to give you time to get here and wrap up whatever you're in the middle of.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Ms. Amber Hamidi, Hamidi.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Could you state your name for the record, please, and spell your last name?
Amber Hamidi Camacho, Hamidi Camacho.
How are you employed, ma'am?
I work for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office
And how long have you been so employed?
since 2001.
And what duties do you perform for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
I work for the Forensic Science Division.
Since 2001, have you been with the Forensic Science Center?
Since 2003.
What did you do between 2001 and 2003?
I worked in jail property from 2001 to 2002, and then 2002 to 2003, I worked in the forensics imaging unit.
And since 2003 up till today, You've been a forensic investigator?
That's correct.
And explain to us or tell us the training that you received in order to carry out the duties to collect, preserve, and process evidence found at a crime scene.
I've received my St. Pete College crime scene certificate. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology from USF, and I've also had several training classes.
Did your training classes include the use of a Leica, L-E-C-I-A, 3D scanner?
That's correct.
Now, because what you're going to testify today only concerns that equipment, I'm not going to go through your other training, but you have since 2003 kept up with your training in order to preserve, in order to perform your... This is just laying a predicate, Judge. Come on.
All right, I'll
Have you kept up with your training so that you can collect, preserve, and process evidence collected at a crime scene?
Yes, I've had annual training.
All right. Now, one of the ways that can be done is through photography.
That's correct.
When I mentioned the Leica 3D scanner, is that in effect one way to capture a scene through photography?
Yes, it's one way.
Let's talk about that. The Leica 3D scanner and the Ninja, N-I-N-J-A, nodal camera. A lot of words there.
Yes.
That is a piece of equipment that you've been trained to use.
Yes, it is.
Explain to us what that is.
The Leica scanner, it's a measuring device. Basically, it uses a laser to capture the crime scene with millions of coordinate points that we can later compile into a 3D model space. And after that, we also use a camera that attaches to a tribrac called the Ninja Nodal that will overlay the realistic images to the scan.
The scanner itself, you've been using since what year?
I've been using it since 2012.
How long has the camera, that particular scanner, been utilized by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
We received it in 2010,
And do you know the model number of the scanner?
a C10.
And do you know the model number, or sorry, the make and model of the Nodal, N-O-D-A-L camera?
The Nodal, Ninja Nodal is actually just a bracket that attaches to our camera. The camera is a Canon EOS Rebel.
That was going to be my next question. What is a Ninja Nodal?
It's a bracket that attaches the camera that lets us do a panoramic picture.
In order to use that equipment, did you have to go through some specific training?
Yes, I did.
And what training was that?
I received a 3-day equipment use on the Leica and then a 40-hour Cyclone software programming
And when did that take place?
in 2014. I'm sorry, correction. I received training in 2012.
Since 2012, how many times have you used that equipment to preserve a crime scene while you're working with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
I've scanned approximately 30 to 40 crime scenes.
What kind of environments can a 3D scanner be used in?
Any environment, outdoor, indoor, dark, light, does not affect the scanner.
Explain to us how the 3D scanner works in conjunction or in concert with the Canon Rebel EOS camera.
A scan is completed with the Leica scanner, and then after that's completed, we place the camera on the same tripod that the scanner was placed and document 6 pictures in a 360-degree view.
Does it take more than one scan to document an area?
Yes.
Is the environment that you're in dictate how many scans it takes?
Yes.
Once the scan is complete and the camera, 6 pictures, is complete, you mentioned some software that is used. Cyclone?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a proprietary software for Leica.
And explain to us what that does.
That allows us to compile the different scan stations of the scene into a 3D model space.
And have you received specific training using that software?
Yes, I have.
And since 2012, how often have you used that software in order to compile the scan and the pictures?
I have compiled at least 30 scans.
When does the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office use that Leica scanner? Under what circumstances?
Our protocol, it responds to all major crime scenes.
Does the scanner have to be calibrated?
Yes, it does.
And how often is it calibrated?
It's annually calibrated.
Does it have to be serviced? Is
Yes.
service and calibration the same thing?
That's correct.
All right. What is the process? Is it something you do, or do you send it off?
No, I do not do it. It's something that gets shipped back to Leica, and they do the calibration.
I assume it's then shipped back to you?
That's correct.
And when it's shipped back to you, do you get some sort of documentation indicating that it's been calibrated?
Yes, we get a calibration certificate.
Is that something that's kept on file?
Yes, it is.
And is kept on file at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office as pursuant to their normal business? They're being a
Yes.
law enforcement officer and forensic services, right?
Yes.
All right. And you keep those records there?
Yes, we do.
All right. Did you know where to go get those?
Yes.
All right. Did you in fact provide them to the state attorney's office for your testimony today?
Yes, we did.
Making it difficult for you.
Which witness, Judge?
Even
Let me show you what's been marked for identifications as State's Exhibit K. Pages 1, 2, and 3. If you would look at each of those, please. I'll give you just a moment. You familiar with those documents?
Yes, I am.
And looking at document number 1, what is that?
It's a calibration certificate from Leica Geosystems,
And the date of the calibration?
9/30/2015.
All right. Document number 2. What is that?
It's also a calibration certificate.
Now let me ask you this. Do you only have one 3D scanner?
Yes, we do.
All right. So these would be the only documents you would have for that 3D scanner.
That's correct.
So these documents are for the only one that you have in your office.
Yes, it is.
All right. Document number 2, what is that?
Document number 2 is also the Leica calibration certificate dated 9/22/2016.
All right. And number 3? What is that?
Calibration certificate
The date of the calibration?
6/25/2014.
May I look back, please?
Yes.
You know, at this time, I would move State's Exhibit marked for identification K into evidence of State's Exhibit number 9.
No objection.
it'll be in there.
Does the Leica 3D scanner have a published error rate?
Yes, it does.
And what is the published error rate for the Model C10 3D scanner?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Judge, I'm laying a predicate for a piece of scientific equipment. Now, we've just had 20 minutes of, is the Home Depot ruler accurate or not? She knows what the error rate, she testifies because she uses it. Do I have to bring in the manual? Do I have to bring in the factory rep? No. She knows what the error rate is. She's read the manual, just like she knows how to work the camera. Knowing how to work the camera is also hearsay.
My other objection, Your Honor, then, is she has not been listed as an expert witness. If we're going to hear testimony regarding what publication she's relied upon to give an opinion on the accuracy rate of this scientific instrument, as the prosecutor calls it, then I think that we should have been put on notice that she was going to be testifying as an expert in the field of 3D scanning, and in particular in the field of 3D scanning as it relates to the Leica equipment.
Judge, this is a technician who knows how to use the camera. She has to be aware of the error rate so that when she's documenting a particular environment, she can take that into consideration. That's all we're doing here. Now, if you don't want me to do it, I'm going to move on.
I don't see that she has to be qualified as an expert to state something about the equipment that she uses. And just as the last witness was questioned extensively as to the equipment she uses, I'm going to overrule.
Does the manufacturer have a published error rate for that camera?
Yes, the published error rate for the C10 scanner is 4 millimeters in every 50 meters.
Can you break that down in inches and feet? No?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about this case. Do you have an occasion to respond to the Cop Theater at 6333 Wesley Road Boulevard in Wesley Chapel, Pasco County, Florida, on December 15, 2015?
Yes, I did.
And who requested that you respond?
I was requested by my supervisors,
And what time did you arrive?
approximately 1 a.m.
And what equipment did you bring with you?
The Leica scanner.
Who did you meet with?
Detective Proctor, Denise Wagan, and then we also had Assistant State Attorney Martin.
That's me?
Yep.
All right.
And then I had my supervisors with me.
The other members of your particular unit that were there, was that Tony Anderson,
That's correct.
Stacy Wall,
Yes.
was Rebecca DeJamas, D-J-I-M-A-S.
Yes.
Does it take more than one person to set up the Leica scanner so that the equipment can do its job?
Yes, it does.
Just generally, so we know how it's done. Explain how a team of individuals uses the Leica camera. How is it set up, positioned, so that the scan can take place? Go through the process for us.
We first decide placement of the scanner, and then once that's decided, we set up and level like a tripod. Then the scanner head is placed on top of the tripod, and initially a case number is set up that all the files will go under, and then we decide to hit the scan button after that.
Does the environment you are in dictate where you place the scanner?
Yes, it can.
Now, in this particular case, you're in a theater.
Correct.
And what were you asked to do inside Theater 10? What were you asked to accomplish?
To get a general overall of the theater, and then also to document the last 2 rows before the bistro.
And did you in fact do that?
Yes, we did.
Were you able to accomplish the scan of Theater 10 with just one scan or multiple scans?
Multiple scans.
Why multiple scans?
We wanted to get a general of the whole theater.
And how many scans did you take?
A total of 24.
The scans were completed in the process that you just explained to us,
That's correct.
using the 3D scanner along with the Canon camera on top of the Ninja Nodal?
That's correct. We would remove the scanner head, then place the camera.
Explain to us how the data from the scanner is retained by the equipment.
Objection, improper predicate. In terms of what her knowledge is on the operation of that particular piece of equipment, we haven't heard it. We know she knows how to use it. We know she knows how to press the button and set them up, but we don't know.
Sustained to the extent that she knows.
Once the scan is complete, do you know how to extract the raw data from the scanner?
Yes, we plug in a thumb drive and transfer the data.
How about the picture? Do you know how to do that?
Yes, we do.
Were you trained on how to do that?
Yes.
How do you do that?
We have an SD card that is inside the camera that's removed that contains the images.
Once you have the thumb drive that has the scans and the SD card that has the photographs, you mentioned there's some Cyclone software. How do you utilize those two pieces of data with the Cyclone software?
Well, we use the scan data collected at the scene, and there's some software that goes along with it that we need to compile all the scan stations together. Once we compile the scan stations, we can overlay the images to get a more realistic view of the scene.
Is that using the Cyclone software?
That is correct.
Explain to us what a model space is. We've used that term a couple of times. What is that?
That's just the 24 scans compiled together that will give you a 360 view of the scene.
We're going to use the term snapshots here in a minute. In regard to the 3D scanner, and once the model space has been compiled, what is a snapshot?
A snapshot is basically, in layman's terms, a screenshot of the model space. It's a JPEG image that we created from the model space.
Now, on December 15, 2015, did you in fact complete the scan of Theater 10 and get an overall view of the theater?
Yes, we did scan Theater 10.
And did you also scan the last two rows we've been referring to as A and B, the last two rows before the center bistro? Did you specifically scan that area?
Yes, I did.
Once you had compiled all the data, did you then create the model space as we discussed?
Yes, I did.
And was that done back at your office?
That's correct.
When you went back to the office in order to compile the data, were all the photographs taken by the camera available to you?
Yes, they were.
Did you have any problems with the photographs?
No, I did not.
Did you have any problems with the scans?
No, I did not.
Through the use of the Cyclone software, then were you able to compile that raw data and complete the model space?
Yes, I was.
Now, is the Cyclone software, is that proprietary software?
That is.
You get one license.
That's correct.
Can you move it from computer to computer?
You can borrow, yes.
You can borrow. Okay.
You may.
Let me show you what's been marked for identifications as State's Exhibit L. It's a series of 6 scans, starting with scan 3. Ask if you look at those. Do you recognize State's Exhibit marked for ID?
Yes, I do.
And do you recognize those 6 scans identified as scan 3 through 8?
Yes, I do.
And do those scans represent the 3D modeling that you compiled using the Cyclone software from the scans of Theater 10 at the Cobb Theater
Yes,
on December 15, 2015?
that's correct.
Now, in those photographs, there's some additional information, correct?
Correct.
You had nothing to do with that at all.
No, I did not.
The only thing that you did was complete the scan.
That's correct.
Is a individual who has been trained with the Cyclone, can they go back and review your work and actually use your work to accomplish different tasks,
Yes,
such as putting masons inside the model space?
yes.
But in this particular case, you did not do that.
I did not take these measurements.
All right. You're only responsible for the scan itself.
Correct.
Your Honor, I'm going to have another witness. I'm not moving them in at this time.
Okay.
The scans 3 through 8 that I showed you, do they fairly and accurately represent a snapshot that was created or taken from the model space of the scan of Theater 10 at Cobb Theater?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen these before coming into court today
Yes, I have.
numerous times?
Yes, I have.
Okay. No further questions at this time, Judge.
Thank you. Carl?
Thank you, Judge. Looking at my watch to know whether to say good morning or good afternoon. Good morning, Ms. Hamidi Camacho.
Good morning.
Now, I know you have a bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida,
Correct.
and you also have a St. Pete College certificate in crime scene, I think they call it.
Yes.
Now, we can agree that you don't have any certification from Leica on operation of the 3D scanning system that you use, correct?
Correct.
What you have is you have training that was done actually in-house.
That's correct.
And that training was provided by an individual who was also with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, right?
That's correct.
That individual has since retired.
Yes.
And we can agree that you don't know whether that individual received his training from Leica or not, right?
I'm unaware, yes.
In fact, you don't even know if Leica offers a certification.
I don't know if they offer a certification, but I do know Bob Datweiler was trained by Leica.
Okay. But in terms of whether or not his training to you was exactly the training that he received, you have no way of knowing that.
No, I do not.
Now, in terms of the training, we can agree that although you've used this equipment several times, you testified up to 30 times, correct?
I have not testified. I've been deposed on the Leica.
Right, and that was my question.
Oh.
You've used it 30 times.
Correct.
You've anticipated my question, but you've never testified regarding Leica equipment prior to today.
That's correct.
Now, you talked a little bit about the accuracy rate.
Yes.
What was the terminology you used?
The Leica publish accuracy rate is an error rate.
All right. In terms of that error rate, have you tested this particular equipment yourself in any manner to be able to tell the court today that this equipment that you used in December actually fell within that accepted published range?
I have not personally tested the error rate.
In fact, all you have to go by is the calibration which was done in September.
That's correct.
In terms of any kind of email regarding any kind of difficulties with the Leica 3D, are you aware of any, or would you even have access to that?
I'm not aware of any problems with the Leica.
Well, have you looked at any email between your agency and Leica regarding that particular equipment?
No, I have not.
What about any invoices, for instance, for the calibration? Usually invoices will say, well, we had to replace this piece, this need a little tune-up. Did you look at any invoices to be able to tell the court what was done when you sent that equipment back for servicing in September?
No, I have not.
Do you know what was done since September in terms of, again, tuning it up and recalibrating, et cetera?
No, I
Do
do
you
not.
know the margin of error or the accuracy rate that was tested by Leica when you got the certification in September that's in evidence, the not certification, but the calibration certificate, the certificate?
No, I don't.
Okay. And certainly on the day that you use this equipment in the Cobb Theater, you can't testify to the court with any degree of scientific certainty what the accuracy rate of that equipment was on that day, correct?
I cannot.
Let's talk a little bit about what you did that day. That day, you went to the theater, and the three other individuals that you described, Jemus, help me out, the other two?
Anderson and Wall.
And Wall. Those three are supervisors.
That's correct.
So out of the four, you're the only non-supervisor,
That's correct.
and you ran the actual mechanism.
I did.
Now, in this case, the way it works, if I understand correctly, first the laser head is set up kind of on a tripod.
Correct.
And you choose different areas around the theater so that you can capture the whole theater. Do I understand that right?
Correct.
After the laser head goes on, then you put the camera on to photograph the area.
Correct.
And you do it in a 360.
Yes.
Now, in this case, you actually, on station 1, which is those two back rows, is that correct?
Correct.
There was an error in the first use of the equipment in that you actually captured some equipment that you left in the path of the camera, right?
That wasn't necessarily an error. I just decided to rescan station 1.
So station 1 was rescanned.
Correct, but it's still there.
All right. And and you said you did 24 scans.
Correct.
And if you do 24 scans, my understanding of the way it works is 360 degrees,
Correct.
and each snapshot is 60 degrees.
Correct.
And that's how it's 6 times 6, 6 times 60, 360.
Correct.
And so therefore, we should have, if you did 24 scans, we should have 144? Is that right?
I believe so.
Okay. But in this case, really, we only had 137.
Correct.
So we don't have all the photographs that should have if this equipment was used properly, right?
I can explain.
Okay. But first, if you can answer my question, then I'll give you an opportunity to explain. If the equipment was used flawlessly, if the scientific instrument was used the way it was intended to use, we would have 6 photographs for each station, for each scan.
The photographs, yes, but the scanner was used flawlessly.
Okay. And in terms of that, you can say that because you've done some sort of diagnostic testing on that scanner to make that determination, or is it one of those things where the scanner tells you, I'm doing everything all right, kind of a self-diagnostic thing?
Correct. It has an internal calibration.
But in terms of you actually hooking the machine up to some sort of instrument you may have at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, you haven't done that.
I don't do the calibration.
So we can agree that you're attesting that the laser acted flawlessly, essentially because the laser told you I did what I was supposed to do.
That's correct.
Like one of those check engine lights in your car.
Correct. No errors.
Okay. But in terms of you being able to tell the court with any sort of degree of scientific certainty, certainly you can't do that. You depend on what the machine's telling you.
Yeah.
You've certainly never been qualified as an expert in the field of 3D scanning
No, I have not.
or an expert in the use of this particular scientific instrument.
No, I have not.
In terms of the software, kind of the same question. Essentially, you know that the this software works, but in terms of algorithmically or some of the technical aspects of the formulas used to empower that software, you don't know, you can't testify as to that. Is that fair to
No,
say?
I cannot.
You simply know how to use it when it's loaded into whatever form, your computer.
That's correct.
Now, the fact that there were 137 images instead of 144, we can agree that you don't know how that happened.
I do know how that happened.
Okay, and how did that happen?
Scan Station 1, the one that I rescanned, we did not collect photographs on the first scan. Therefore, they wouldn't have the 6 photographs in Scan Station 1. Scan Station 15 only has 5 photographs
Okay, instead of 6.
instead of 6.
But in terms of how that happened, it was just human error.
That was a miscount, but the photographs don't affect the scan data. It just gives it a realistic view.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, but what training and background do you have to be able to give the opinion as to whether or not that affects the overall product? Are you just going by eyeball, it looks all right?
No, there's scan colors that initially come up that we can collect measurable points from. The colors are the photographs, the color photographs, we are just overlaying to that scan data that's already there. It has no bearing on the actual measurements at all.
And again, when you say overlaying, it makes me think that you're eyeballing it, you're not doing some kind of calculation within the software or the program itself. Is that fair to say?
We're cubing the images into PT GUI. It's a software program that creates a 360 panoramic that we can overlay onto the scan data.
Okay, and again, when you overlay it, you're looking at it to see
No.
that it matches.
No, we're not looking at it matches. We can collect and compare points within the scan and the photographs to overlay the exact area.
Okay, when you say compare points, you're talking about looking at it.
Yeah, I have to compare the scan data with the pictures.
Okay. Can I have a moment, Judge?
You,
Yeah, I don't have anything further, Judge. And Mr. Shaw reminded me to renew the objection I had concerning the testimony of Ms. Hamidi Camacho.
okay, thank you. So noted, same rule. Any redirect?
No, no.
May this witness be released?
She needs to remain under subpoena, please, so she can go about her personal and professional business.
Like you said, you're still under subpoena, but some remote possibility you could get recalled. I'm sure you'll get plenty of advance notice though if you do.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're free to go. All right, well, it's 11:55. You want to break for lunch?
Judge, I would ask that, let me put on one more witness, and then we can tie up, and then we can start with a paramedic and medical examiner and another civilian witness after lunch. But if I can get the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office people back home, I would appreciate it.
All right, the last two have been fairly short. Is this one anticipated to be similar?
By my standards.
Very good. Go ahead and call your next witness.
State calls Ms. Stacy Wall.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
State your name for the record and spell your last name for the court reporter.
My name is Stacy Wall, W-A-L-L.
How are you employed, ma'am?
I'm employed as an assistant forensic science supervisor with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
A little over 14 years.
Let me talk to you a little bit about your duties with the Sheriff's Office. Specifically, what unit are you in?
I am in the Forensic Sciences Division,
And how long have you been an assistant supervisor?
a little over 3 years.
Prior to that, what duties did you perform?
I was a forensic science specialist, and my duties were to document, identify, collect, and preserve all matters of evidence related to crime scenes.
And would you explain to us what training you have received to begin your career as a forensic investigator with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
I have an associate's in science degree in crime scene technology, in addition to hundreds of hours of additional training in crime scene processing, forensic photography, homicide investigations, shooting reconstructions, and three-dimensional reconstructions.
Right. And how long have you been an assistant supervisor?
Over 3 years.
As an assistant supervisor, what are your duties?
My duties encompass all of those that I just mentioned, in addition to managing a team of forensic science specialists and coordinating team activity to effectively process crime scenes.
Let me direct your attention to this particular case. Did you receive a request from your agency to assist the Pasco Sheriff's Office with their investigation of the shooting that took place on January 13, 2014 at the Cobb Theater on Wesley Chapel Boulevard?
Yes.
And did you in fact respond to the Cobb Theater located at 6333 Wesley Grove Boulevard, Wesley Chapel, Pasco County, Florida on December 15, 2015 at your agency's request?
Yes.
Approximately what time did you arrive?
A little bit before midnight on the 14th.
How long were you there?
Over 7 hours approximately.
Were any other members of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office there?
Yes, there were.
Who?
We had Assistant Forensic Science Supervisor DeGemis, Forensic Science Specialist Hamidi, Forensic Science Supervisor Anderson.
Was there a representative from the Pasco Forensic Investigative Unit there?
Yes.
And who was that?
Forensic Investigator Wagon.
Was there a detective there from the Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
Yes. Detective Proctor.
All right. Was I there?
Yes.
What equipment did you bring to the Cobb Theater on that day?
We brought all of our equipment associated with our Leica 3D scanner.
Now, we've had some testimony right before you regarding the equipment. That would be the scanners at C10,
That is correct.
and there's a Canon camera associated with the equipment,
That is correct.
and then there's something called a Ninja Nodal that's a bracket that you attach the camera to the scanner.
That is correct.
What training have you received in order to use that equipment?
I received training, initially formal training in 2012 to encompass both the utilization of the equipment and the accompanying Cyclone software.
And who did you receive that training from?
Bob Detweiler.
And who is Bob Detweiler?
He's a retired member of the Forensic Sciences Division.
And why did he give you the training?
He was initially trained by Leica in these tasks, and he carried on that training performance within our division.
Other than you, well, did he train anybody else in your division?
Yes, he trained multiple members.
Was that one of his responsibilities?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not the corporation Leica offers a certification to people that have been trained?
I do not know that.
The equipment that you used, I'm sorry, that you were trained on, What kind of training did you receive? What did it encompass?
It encompassed approximately 32 hours of formal training in equipment use and approximately 50 hours of formal training within the software.
As far as the equipment use, explain to us the training received. Were you able to practice with it? Did you do mock scans? What did you do?
Yes, we did do mock scans of our forensic science building to encompass interior and exterior scannings, and we practiced on vehicles as well.
As far as the software, how were you trained to use the software? Tell us the process.
We were initially trained by putting the scans together that we obtained from our building in the training of the equipment, in addition to some practice training with some closed cases that were done prior to that.
Within your office, is there a manual for that equipment?
Yes, there is.
For both the equipment and the software?
Yes.
Have you had an occasion to use that?
Yes.
Is that manual something that is updated periodically or never? What?
The original manuals we received from Leica, so they're official Leica manuals, in addition to our creation. Myself and Bob Detweiler, mainly Bob Detweiler, created step-by-step PowerPoints to kind of make it a little bit more user-friendly for everyone.
And you assisted in that?
No, I've been responsible for updating that, but Bob Detweiler was the initial author of all of that information.
And what do you do to update it?
If we update any software or if a step is not clear to any member, I try to add additional screenshots and step-by-step actions within the PowerPoint for them.
We've had testimony regarding how the equipment is set up, how the scan takes place, how the equipment is calibrated. We've had testimony about the Cyclone software and how it creates a model space and how you can take a snapshot of those model space and you can create a 360-degree true view, if you will, of the equipment. I mean, through the software. Okay?
Okay.
Now, in this particular case, after the scan took place, did you have an occasion to go back and review the model space that was created by Ms. Hamini using the scan and the camera photos taken on December 15, 2015 at the Cop Theater?
Yes.
And did you in fact work with the model space that Ms. Hamini compiled?
Yes.
And working with that model space, were you asked to populate the model space with certain, or not certain, but with specific measurements?
Yes.
Before we get into specifically what you did, explain to us how the Cyclone software allows you to determine measurements from the scan data that was received from the Cop Theater. How does the software allow you to do that?
The 3D reconstruction in itself is not a photograph, but it's a compilation of millions of different measurements. So if you zoom in really close, it's almost like pixelations of a photo, but those are points of measurements instead of pixelations. So anywhere within that model space, you can pick any 2 points and then go to a tool up in the toolbar and request a measurement, and the algorithm is written such that it will give you that measurement from whichever 2 points you have picked.
And is that the process that you use in this particular case to determine specific measurements within that 3D model?
That is one process.
All right. Explain to us another process that you use.
Another process is if you are given a measurement and you're putting it into the model space, what you're going to do is pick a couple points within that model space, and from those points you're going to create a line segment. And from that line segment, then you can go into the properties and determine the measurement that you were given and you want to depict within that model space.
And were you provided measurements in this particular case?
Yes, I was.
Were you provided measurements from the deposition of Michael Knox?
Yes, I was.
Did you have an occasion to review the autopsy report of Dr. Thogmartin of Chad Olson as far as the measurements of Mr. Olson?
Yes.
And did you review measurements taken by Ms. Wagan of seats and risers at the theater?
Yes.
And did you have an occasion to look at and review the measurements of Mr. Reeves taken by Ms. Wagan?
Yes.
And using those measurements, did you in fact, and also did you have an occasion to review the measurements by Ms. Wagan of the shoes that Mr. Olson was wearing at the time?
Yes.
Did you use a combination of all those measurements in order to populate and make the demonstrative aids that we're going to talk about now?
Yes.
So let me show you what's been marked for identification on State's Exhibit number L for identification. A series of scan 6, scan 3 through 8. Ask if you recognize those.
Yes, I recognize these.
Now, scan 3 through 6, the model space that we see in those scans, is that what is referred to as a snapshot?
Yes, it is.
All right. Now, when you're working with these measurements, are you working within the 3D model space?
Yes.
You can spin it around,
Yes.
turn it upside down if you have to,
Yes.
whatever you need to find either the points or to get a measurement populated within the 3D model space.
That is correct.
You mentioned to us that you're able to zoom it almost to, you can look at every, it's not pixel, but points
Correct.
within that model space.
Yes.
Now, regarding scan number 3, do you mind if I stand here, Jeff? Regarding scan number 3, the measurement that you populated in scan number 3, what is the source of the information that you use to make the demonstrative aid that we see in scan number 3?
Scan number 3 depicts a line segment of 61 inches that was named wound height, and that information was attained from a combination of the autopsy reports where the descendant's height is 76 inches and the wound height is 16.5 below that, and I also added the 1.5 inches from the sole height from the shoes that he was wearing that night.
Now, once you've populated that, what's referred to as the wound height, are you able to then reference within the 3D model space where that would be in any given area?
Yes, you can place that line segment and then you can still continue to move the model space around to view it from any angle within that three-dimensional space.
Now, in this particular case, did you, for demonstrative purposes, indicate where 61 inches, which would be the wound height that Mr. Olson is standing straight up? That's
Correct.
what we use, just a vertical line.
Correct.
All right. Where that would be in relation to the back wall behind this row of seats we've been referring to as row A.
Yes.
All right. Now, when we talk about scan number 3, we know that there is the seats are stadium steps, so there's a riser there, right?
Correct.
And you know the height of that riser.
Correct.
So when you place the line segment representing the wound height, that was placed on the floor, if you will, where Mr. Olson's seat would have been.
That is correct.
And then you can reference that by a straight line to the wall that was behind Mr. Reeves' seat.
That is correct.
And is that what you did with scan number 3?
Yes.
Scan number 4 seems kind of similar to scan number 3, is it?
It is.
Did you use any other source of measurements other than what you explained to us in scan number 3?
The only other measurement in these particular demonstratives is the height from that parallel line to the back wall from the wound height to show the clearance over the lower portion of Mr. Olson's seat.
Now, at the time that the scan was complete, that seat had been reclined, if you will, or placed in its reclined position and fixed.
That is correct.
Okay. And in all of the scans, that seat of Mr. Olson was placed in a fixed position as if it was reclined.
That is correct.
None of the scans show the seat straight up.
Not in the model space I was working with.
All right. So that would be the distance between the wound height and the top of his seat when it's reclined to the max it could have been reclined on that day.
That is correct.
Scan number 5, what measurements were used for that?
I used the same measurement of the 61-inch wound height. I added the 16.5 inches to the top of Mr. Olson's head, designated in red. And then I used a 29-inch height to represent the elbow height of Mr. Reeves if he was seated in his chair within the theater.
And how did you derive at the 29 inches?
The 29 inches is a little bit of a calculation, but I used several sources for that one, if I may refer. I used a source from Knox's depot to show that Mr. Reeves' seated position from the seat to the top of his shoulder was 23 inches. I then used another measurement from a Knox depot to show Reeves' shoulder to his elbow seam was 10 inches. So to get elbow height, I subtracted the 10 from the 23 in order to get 13 inches. But I had to add the 16 inches from the top of the theater seat to the floor in order to get 29 inches of where Mr. Reeves' elbow would fall within the confines of the environment of the theater.
Scan number 6, what does that represent?
It also represents the 61-inch wound height and the 77.5 inches to the top of Mr. Olson's head, but this one depicts 39 inches in height from Mr. Reeves' seat, which is a calculation not of his elbow height at 29, but of his shoulder height at 39.
And how did you arrive at 39 inches?
I arrived at 39 inches, again from the deposition from Knox, to show that Reeves' seated position to the top of his shoulder was 23 inches, and then I added the 16 inches of height from the top of the theater seat to the floor.
Okay. All the other calculations remain the same?
Yes, they do.
Now, as far as the placement of the blue line that's representing Mr. Olson, if he was just standing fully erect, was that just arbitrarily placed in the model seat in front of his seat?
Yes, the position of that blue line was just a general location in front of Mr. Olson's seat.
Not suggesting in any way that's where he was at any particular location, it's just a place to put it.
Correct.
All right. Now, the reason I brought that up, I want you to look at scan number 7. What is that?
Scan number 7 depicts all of the same measurements again, the 61-inch wound height of Mr. Olson and 77.5 inches to the top of his head. In addition to Reeves' elbow height at 29 inches, his shoulder height at 39 inches. In addition, there's a top of Reeves' head measurement. So that line would depict the height of the top of Mr. Reeves' head if seated in that position. The difference where the blue line is in this photograph compared to the others is that was placed 12 inches into the seat, according to Knox's depot.
Okay. And as far as the height of Mr. Reeves' head that you used in that scan, what is the source of information?
The source of information for that one is, let me look at my chart here. Actually, that one is from Aaron Smith's report where there is a measurement taken, Reeves' seat to top of his head to equal 37.125 inches. And then again, I'm adding the 16 inches, for the seat height.
And 0.125, that's an eighth.
0.125 is an eighth.
Now, scan number 8, the only difference between scan 7 and scan 8 is the placement of the blue line,
That is correct.
and that's just in an arbitrary position, not suggesting anything other than just a place to put it.
Correct.
Okay. Scan number 7, however, the blue line was specific to the information in the Knox depot regarding the distance between the front of the back of the chair to Mr. Olson's chest, in his opinion.
Yes, that is correct.
There's no measurement there, that was just an opinion of his.
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time I would move State's Exhibit marked for identification L into evidence, being scans 3 through 8.
Your Honor, we would object, the grounds being number one, this individual has not been qualified as an expert to be able to testify regarding the accuracy of the 3D imaging or the measurements within the imaging. I understand she's using other people's measurements, but in terms of how they're represented in the images. The reason that's problematic here is because this is being represented as a scientific instrument. The photographs are being represented to the court as somehow being scientifically derived. However, this individual can't testify, Ms. Wall can't testify, as to the accuracy of these photographs or these images with any degree of scientific certainty.
Mr. Clance?
All that goes to the weight, not the admissibility. This is equipment that's been used for the forensic technicians at Pinellas County since 2010. She's had adequate training. She knows how to complete the scan. She knows how to compile the data. She knows how to use the software. She has testified sufficiently as to how she can populate the data within the 3D model space. You heard her testify how the software can be used in order to find the points of interest within the model space down to a singular point, and how the software uses an algorithm in order to populate a particular distance. She also explained how particular measurements can be placed inside the model space using the same software, using the same technique, so that a particular distance can be determined within the 3D model space. Yes, we did not put on any type of error rate through her, because we did that through Ms. Miney, because it's the scan that has the error rate and not the software. So this is software that is proprietary with the Leica system. It is being used in conjunction with the system. It is being used as designed by the manufacturer. It is being used by individuals who have been trained to use it. So any objection by Mr. Michaels does not go to exclusion. It simply goes to the weight of the evidence.
Judge, I have an analogy. I'm big on analogies. My objection is no different than the whole body of case law regarding a police officer using Valtox to determine whether or not an item tests positive for cocaine, for instance. If an officer testifies, I'm trained to use it with this tube, I know I put 2 drops of this and 2 drops of this, I shake it up, if it's purple, it's cocaine, cases are clear. That's not good enough. Just because she knows if I press a button and I go to the toolbox, I can do A, B, and C, certainly she can't testify as to how the software works. She knows which buttons to press, but in terms of how it works, she can't give us any sort of confidence in the scientific reliability of the photographs that are being presented to this court as some sort of scientific evidence. So that's a problem we have here.
Judge, the example he gave, that is a presumptive test. It is solely manufactured by the company as a presumptive test. This is equipment that is used over and over and over again for the purposes of documenting crime scenes. And like I said, this goes to any type of argument. It goes simply to the weight and not to the admissibility. And the court can either accept it or reject it like anything else.
And what I would suggest, Your Honor, if I may, the court has held off on certain rulings for certain individuals providing certain testimony. I would request that the court do that for these particular photographs and for this evidence, allow us to, I know your head's going to explode if I say the word memorandum, but Judge, to do a memorandum in this case so that we can more lucidly present our argument and make a decision at some later time. So I'm fine with doing that.
Judge, they've had 2 years to do that. They've taken the depositions. We filed motions over and over. Now we're in the middle of a hearing on the last 2 days, and they want to file a memo.
Judge, we received some photographs as late as Sunday from the 3D modeling, and so it's an ongoing process, and certainly Mr. Martin was not on this case from the beginning, so I'm certainly not blaming him. However, what's fair is fair, and we're getting this stuff as we get it. Both sides are trying hard to do what they can to get this done. So although I appreciate the argument, I will ask for the same consideration that the prosecutor got on our objections.
And just so it's clear, all of the modeling that was done was given back in either November or December of last year. The only thing I recently gave them is what I was going to use in court. That's what I recently gave them. They had all the other information.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Judge.
All right. A little different spin on this. It does fall in the, for purposes of this hearing, obviously, it's a little different than if there is a trial. I'm going to consider this as a proper, this exhibit. How do we handle the any other exhibits? They just came in.
They came in and you were going to reserve ruling on them, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to do the same with this. And I'm not really interested in a 50-page memo, but I will invite some argument in case law as to prior admissibilities and how it's been used previously. I'm sure we can get that from our neighbor to the south. And I'm looking more at this more like the intoxilizer or something along those lines. There is a little bit more of a requirement as to the operation and calibration and stuff with those, and I'm just not sure what the standard is for this level. At first blush, it appears that it's similar to any other tools that are used by forensics. But the difference I'm looking at is the population of input of stuff and all that. So, yeah, I do distinguish it from, say, using a tape measure, but I don't think it's that extraordinary. I would like a little guidance. I'll reserve, this will be come in as number 10, I believe.
I believe so, Judge.
10. All right, and I'm gonna. We're gonna have to give it a number, and I think I just gave the same numeric numbers to any others that I was going to reserve on. They came in with that number anyways, right? All right. So we'll give that number 10, and I'll reserve as to its ultimate admissibility. So we're going to consider that a proper for the moment. All right, and are you passing the witness yet? Is that where you were at, or?
Yes.
All right. I anticipated a bit of cross here, so let's take a short recess, 10 minutes.
All right.
Take a recess, don't discuss your testimony.
We're lacking a couple components over here.
I see that. Well, I guess he was done, so.
Let me just step out.
Yeah, we'll wait. It was 10 minutes, wasn't it? Mr. Martin?
Apologize for being late.
It's okay. I was just explaining how you guys have been working very hard over the last 3 years, all of you. So, you were done with this witness, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Michaels?
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Wall.
Good afternoon.
We can agree that you're not, you don't have any special certification in the use of the Leica 3D system, correct?
That is correct.
Likewise with the Cyclone software, you don't have any special certification, any kind of certificate of any sort, do you?
No, I do not.
You had the in-house training?
Can I interrupt just real quick? I forgot
course.
to remind the witness, you're still under oath.
Yes, ma'am.
So you may take care. Thank you. Go ahead, sorry.
All right. I'll ask the questions. You know you were under oath before, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, in terms of the Leica software, you were saying you don't have any specific certification in that field.
No, I do not.
And in terms of ever having testified as an expert in the use of the Leica 3D scanning equipment, we can agree that you've never been qualified as an expert to testify in court regarding that subject.
That is correct.
And similar question with the Cyclone software. Again, we can agree that you've never been qualified as an expert in court to give your opinion or testify regarding the operation of the Cyclone software.
That is correct.
Now, in terms of the lines, because from looking at the photographs, it appears there are some straight lines with the measurements that you've described, correct?
That is correct.
Well, we can agree that people are not straight lines. In other words, there's a dimension to them, 3 dimensions as opposed to the 2-dimensional line we're seeing, correct?
That is
Judge,
correct.
I'm going to object to this line of questioning. Of course, that is true, but as you heard, this is a demonstrative evidence. It's not attempted to represent a person in 3D. So if we're going to have a cross, let's cross on what it was intended for. It's a demonstrative aid, a line representing a particular space and time. That's all it is. We're not trying to put humans in there. So the cross is, for the record, since this is a proffer, I think it needs to be specific for what it was intended. It's strictly a demonstrative aid to put relationship in space, in 3D, in 2-dimensional space.
Well, Judge, if that's Mr. Martin's testimony, I'll be happy to cross him on this subject. He seems to know a lot about it.
All right, I was just pondering what the exact,
Objection was?
yes.
So was
It's
I.
outside the scope of direct, Judge, because I didn't represent it to be a person, a mannequin. It's just
Okay.
a line in space to put depth, if you will, or in 2-dimensional space. That's all it is. Referencing lines for the chairs and the 3D. That's all it is.
All right, I guess I'll overrule on that objection, just that I'll allow you to continue with that, so noted.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Ms. Wall, you would agree with what Mr. Martin says concerning those lines in the photographs?
Correct. They're not representation of the human form.
Or where the people even are in the photograph, correct?
That is correct.
They're merely reference points that you're provided by the prosecution in this case.
It's merely data depicted in a 3-dimensional space.
And so in terms of the points, because you described how you choose point A and point B to actually create the line that you get from the toolbar, those are 2 points that you choose within the 3D image. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And were any of those points approved or suggested by the prosecution in this case?
The
Judge, I'm
o-
going to object to that. Any type of conversation she had with me other than what she did is my work product. So whether it was approved or not, it's my work
I
product.
asked if it was suggested, Judge.
I'll allow it, overrule.
Okay. Was it suggested where to put those 2 points?
It was not suggested. It was a combination of obtaining the reports, autopsy reports, and depots with specific data from that, and I was just requested to demonstrate where that data would fall within that 3-dimensional space.
And I guess exactly what I'm talking about is, for instance, it's a theater setting, so there are seats, there are 2 different rows of seats, correct?
That is correct.
And the lines or the measurements that you illustrated, is that a fair word to say, on the image,
Correct.
would be in an area between the seats. In other words, there's a line that may be in the middle, maybe a little towards one row or another, that the location of that line is one that's strictly arbitrary on your part?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, in terms of the measurements themselves, we can agree that you would depend on whatever data is provided you, because certainly you don't know what those measurements are.
Correct.
For instance, the measurement from the seat cushion concerning the images that are purported to depict, or in light of what the prosecution said during his objection, that would be a demonstrative aid to help him explain his theory of where Mr. Reeves and how he was seated. That information in terms of measurement and the line would be information that you just described. It was provided to you by Knox Depot, for instance,
Correct.
and the Pasco County Sheriff's Office measurements of Mr. Reeves that were done at some point.
Right, I have all the sources for the information from the data that was depicted in the snapshots.
But in terms of any sort of allowance, for lack of a better terminology, for cushioning, for instance, because you will agree with me that the cushions tend to give when an individual sits in them, right?
That would be fair, yes.
And so your measurements would be strictly from the top of the surface,
Correct.
not taking into allowance any sort of give that any individual might have upon that cushion.
Correct.
And again, in terms of the posture of the individuals, you have no idea what that individual's posture was when he or she was measured.
Correct.
You just provided the numbers.
I am provided the data, and that is what is depicted in the snapshot.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And so, and the same goes for an individual standing. Certainly, you described that you had a measurement for Mr. Olson's shoes.
A measurement for the soles of Mr. Olson's shoes, yes.
Okay. And how thick they were.
Yes.
But in terms of the material or the type of shoe, you had no idea.
No.
So you wouldn't know if the numbers that you've provided, the measurements, the depiction of those measurements, accurately depict the actual height of the wound, for instance, in this case, correct?
I'm really not sure exactly what you're asking.
Okay,
Could
this
you
is what
try
I'm
to
asking.
rephrase that,
I will.
please?
I will. This is what I'm asking. On the photograph, you use terminology such as wound height, right? Okay. We can agree that you don't know if the individual that you're portraying the wound height for was standing up. We can agree that you don't know if that's precisely the height from the floor of the wound, because you don't know the give of the shoe that the individual's wearing. In other words, it could be a little less than that.
Given potential give of shoes, I'm not a shoe expert, so I can't attest to that, but the 61-inch wound height that I depicted is using an erect stance because I have no ability to compensate for body motion and movement.
Okay, so when it says wound height, really it's an approximation.
It's an approximation if Mr. Olson was standing erect.
And, for instance, the shoes happen to be Nike Air Maxes. You
Okay.
look like you could be a runner. Are you a runner?
Sometimes.
Okay. And the way that the Air Max shoe works is it's a little cushion, so it gives. That's why they call it Air Max.
Okay.
And so are you aware of how much that shoe would give if a 205-pound individual was standing within those shoes?
I have no knowledge of that.
And so we can agree that where you have wound height, that's an approximation based on just the raw data you're given,
It's an approximation, yes, sir.
not given the actual wound height.
No.
Because when we talk about wound height, for instance, you don't know if the Dr. Thogmartin's measurement was, for instance, to the very bottom of the wound, right?
That is correct.
Or the top,
That is correct.
or the middle.
That is correct.
It's just what's listed in his report as wound height,
That is correct.
and that's where you get the information.
Yes.
And the same goes for instance, for Mr. Reeves seated in the chair. Again, when we're talking about shoulder height, we're talking about an approximation because you don't know the give in the cushion for a 260-pound man
That is correct.
in those particular cushions.
Yes.
And the same goes for the other measurements. Mr. Reeves' shoulder measurement within the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yes.
yes? I apologize.
Yes.
And the elbow and the other measurements as well.
That is correct.
Okay, they're approximations.
That is correct.
And you have no way of verifying those measurements. For instance, there was no way for you to have Mr. Reeves sit in a chair yourself and do a measurement to verify that the measurements you're depicting are the same as for the real guy in the real seat with a certified tape measure or some other sort of measurement system.
That is correct.
And we can agree Mr. Reeves wasn't measured that you're aware of with any sort of 3D imaging,
No,
nor was Mr. Olson,
no,
nor his shoes.
no,
We can also agree that you've never published any articles, books, treatises, or any sort of publications in the field of Leica 3D imaging,
that is correct.
or any sort of 3D imaging.
That is correct.
And you haven't published anything in the field of Cyclone software.
No.
Can I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
Judge, at this time I would renew my objection concerning lack of predicate for her opinion regarding the accuracy of the system, similar to the prior witness. I didn't make the objection before. I'll make it at this point, and also tell the court at this point I have no further questions.
Thank you. Can I reiterate?
No, I apologize for the phone. I was trying very hard to get it turned off. I forgot to turn it off. Please accept my apology for that.
Apology accepted. Investigator, while you are free to go today, you're still under subpoena. If you are called back, I don't know when it would happen, but I'm thinking you will get advance notice. Should you be called, please return if requested, but probably won't be. You're free to go today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, good time for lunch. How long, Dave, you've got your lineup out, how long should we break?
An hour would be fine. We have 2 more witnesses.
Okay, is an hour sufficient?
I'm sorry, 3 more witnesses. I apologize.
Hour and 15 minutes preferably?
Sure.
All right, for those who are stepping out for lunch, let's just be back at 2:15. Thank you, we'll be in recess till...
All rise.